वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमा ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So yesterday we saw first two sections. One was Pruthu's exemplary reception of the Kumaras in first 6 shlokas. 7 to 16, Pruthu Maharaj praises the Kumaras and enquires. And then 17 onwards, Sanat Kumar answers. So last thing discussed was 21. 22. 22 is done, huh? 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 22 is done. Begin. Okay. ठीक है. So this section of 22 to 36, this is because these 4 Kumaras, as we know the history, that before that they were not devotees in terms of their aspiration. But then, by smelling the tulasi on the lotus feet of the Lord, they were fully purified, and then they became unalloyed devotees of the Lord. So, many places in Srimad Bhagavatam you will find there is a description about mixed devotional service. Even personally by Shukadeva Goswami also, at some times, he gives one step below solutions. You remember from first 1 to cantos, where he doesn't talk about pure devotional service immediately. Yes? Mike. Where it is? Okay, anywhere else in Bhagavatam? Where? Yeah. So, first he gave, which is not eternal, foolproof method. Because he was told that do the so then that is like a partial solution. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Varnashram Vibhagasha. You do your prescribed duties as per your Varna and Ashram, but for Samsiddhi Haritoshnam,
Yeah.
for pleasing Lord. So, like that. So
Yeah.
not foolproof like Bhakti, but.
So we find that many places this kind of descriptions are there. Again, just to create a distinction between mixed devotional service and pure devotional service. So here also, in 2 sections, now 4 Kumaras, specifically Sanat Kumar, start giving understanding of how one can be freed from the clutches of this material world. First he gives Jnana Mishra Bhakti, and then he gives the Bhakti Mishra Jnana. So these 2 things he gives. What it means is, Jnana Mishrita Bhakti is in predominance, and then it is mixed with Jnana. Mixed with Jnana means giving some understanding about the Supreme Lord, that is the process. Goal is to achieve liberation from the material bondage. That is the goal. So, and in Jnana, because it is basic things, the goal is to achieve Brahman realization. So, Bhakti mixed with all these things, that becomes a Jnana Mishrita Bhakti. So why this is given? Because we find that multiple situations, different type of people are there who can appreciate and advance from their whatever place they are, they go little further, like that. We find that even Vidura came to deliver his brother Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was not told to meditate on the Supreme Lord. What he was told? You are not there, I know. What I was told. Uh, leave the home, went to the forest then. Ah. So, yeah. So he was told to do yoga, in which he gave up his body, merged different elements, and then he got liberation. So we see that. Mm. So many places this kind of procedures are given, but that procedure is not given to emphasize that has to be done. So in totality, if you see, even here also, when Sanat Kumar is talking about, first he talks about Jnana Mishrit Bhakti, then he talks about Bhakti Mishrita Jnana, and then he talks about pure devotional service. So culmination is pure devotional service. So this is the second, 22nd shloka. So 22nd to 36. So this is a section where this Jnana Mishra Bhakti is talked about. Text 22nd. सा श्रद्धया भगवत धर्म चर्चया जिज्ञासयाध्यात्मिक योग निष्ठया योगेश्वरोपासनया च नित्यं पुण्यश्रवः कथया पुण्यया च somebody.
Attachment for the Supreme. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves.
Yeah. So here different 5 different process is given, that Shraddhaya, having faith, Bhagavat Dharma Charchaya, Jidnyasaya, being inquisitive about the process of bhakti, Adhyatmika Yoga Nisthaya, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, Yogeshwara Upasanaya, worshipping the Supreme Lord, or the topmost devotee, that is topmost yogi, that is devotees, and then Nityam Punya Shravah Kathaya Punya Yacha, regularly hearing and chanting Lord's glories. So here Prabhupada writes in the purport that word Yogeshwara applies for the both Supreme Lord and his devotees. So, and then Prabhupada writes about this Yogeshwara. This word comes 2 places, once directly and once indirectly. Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna, that is one, and then second time it comes about the Samay Yukta Tamo Mataha. So, Yogi Naam Api Sarvesham, that the topmost yogi. And then in the further purport, Prabhupada writes about that how one takes shelter of the pure devotee. then one advances in Krishna consciousness. And then he is quoting this shloka, Bhagavatam. Naishamatis-tavat urukramangrim sprushati anantha pagamo yadartham mahiyasam padarajobhishekam nishkinchananam navranita yavat. So he says one should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with the material world, but it's simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. So he is talking about the Nishkinchananam na vrinita yavat. What we should do? Mahiyasam pad rajobhishekam. And then he talks about the items of devotional service which Rupa Goswami talks. And then three topics, three things out of the 64 devotional items. The first three are Adav Guru Padashraya, that is one. Sadharma Pruchha, Sadhu Marga Anugamanam. So this is the, so he is doing parallel between what Sanat Kumar is talking here and Rupa Goswami talking in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Yeah. Text 23. Arthendriya Rama Sagoshtya Trushnaya Tatsammatanam parigrahena cha Viviktarucha paritosha atmani Vina harer guna piyusha panat.
One has to make progress in spiritual life by not associating with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money. Not only such persons, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. One can be thus elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment.
Yeah. So here also further things are discussed. Artha Indriya Arama Sagoshti Atrishnaya. That not associating with persons simply interested in sense gratification and money. Artha Indriya Arama. So the next he says Tat Sammatam Aparigrahena cha. Not associating with associates of materialists. That those who are Sangi Sangam, that's, or not accepting their goals. Vivikta Rucha means being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. Paritosha Atmani, being satisfied in the self. Vina Harer Guna Piyusha Panat, molding one's life so that one cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the Lord's qualities. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes that the beginning qualities cannot be developed unless the last quality, Vina Harer Guna Piyusha Panat. Because just negating things in this world is not so easy. So we see that the second paragraph, Prabhupada writes, simple negation or giving up a company of materialistic persons will not do. We must have engagements. And I said, sometimes it is found that a person interested in spiritual advancement gives up the company of material society and goes to a secluded place, as recommended for the yogis especially. But that also will not help a person in spiritual advancement, for in many instances such yogis also fall down. As far as jnanis are concerned, generally they fall down without taking shelter of Lord's lotus feet. The impersonalist or the voidist can simply avoid the positive material association. They cannot remain fixed in transcendence without being engaged in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is to hear about the glories of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is recommended in the verse Vina Hare Guna Piyusha Panat. And then in the further, Prabhupada talks about the Bhakti Lata Bij, how it grows. That how it is given, the creeper is given water of that Chaitanya Charitamrita it comes, Mali Haya Haya, see Bija Aropan, and then Shravana Kirtana Jale Karaya Sechan. And then that sprouts and then reaches ultimately to the lotus feet of the Lord. The real cause of the growing of such fruit, which is here called the nectar of hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to water the creeper of devotional service by hearing and chanting. So, and then Prabhupada writes, the purport is that one cannot live outside the society of devotees. One must live in the association of devotees, where there is a constant chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord. The Krishna consciousness movement is started for this purpose, so that hundreds of ISKCON centers may give people a chance to hear and chant, to accept the spiritual master and to dissociate themselves from persons who are materially interested. In this way, one can make solid advancement in going back home, back to Godhead. So we see that Prabhupada opening the centers all over the world is not some his own idea, because we see that he created the system by which maximum people of this world will be come in touch with chanting and hearing of the Lord. Yeah. Text. Yeah.
Means Prabhupada is talking about this. Sometimes it is found that this person interested in spiritual advancement gives up the company of material society and goes to a secluded place as recommended for yogis especially. So this spiritual advancement means he's not trying for only bhakti yoga, it's a mishra bhakti. Either here is yoga mishra kind of thing.
Basically, we may be in Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, our acharyas, they are Lord's very confidential servants. But when we practice devotional service, depending on our tendencies, that devotional service is mixed. Sometimes we have jnana tendencies, sometimes we have yoga tendencies, sometimes we have karma kanda tendencies. Very rarely somebody may have pure devotional tendencies. Can you give some example of somebody practicing devotional service but having some jnana tendencies? I am talking about our life in Brahmacharya ashram. We are practicing pure devotional service only because we are practicing Prabhupada's purports, Prabhupada's instruction. So that is pure devotional service only. But then because of we do that devotional service through our mind and senses, then it becomes mixed. Tendency to learn Sanskrit. Okay. Learning Sanskrit is not exactly kind of wrong. Huh? Scholarly approach. Okay. So we are approaching the way our Godakesh Prabhu was telling today. He saw 2-3 devotees going for Bhagavad learning. Morning only he was telling.
Correct.
And then he asked. So then their purpose of going to Bhagavatam was not pure devotional service.
That is Jnana Prabhuji or that is karma? They are fruity
That's
mentality.
karma. I'm just telling that how people they become.
Prabhuji, Jnana tendency is this, like we are looking for services which are very relaxed, easygoing, not taking anxiety,
Yeah.
like that. So that is Jnana tendency, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Yeah.
So in devotional service we are more for Shanti than taking anxiety for Krishna. That is a Jnana tendency. We feel that अकेला छोड़ दो मुझे ज़्यादा टेंशन मत दो, शांति, आप भी शांत रहो, मुझे भी शांति में जीने दो, ऐसा. So, but then Prabhupada never gave Shanti to his disciples. He made everybody run.
Prabhuji,
like
two
that.
examples coming in my mind. If I can share, Prabhuji. One small Prabhuji, this Vrindavan temple was building. At that time, Subal Prabhu, he was in charge of that. So one day he told Prabhupada that so much anxiety, dealing with contractor, this cheating, that cheating. I wanted to go in a secular plane and chant holy names. What I'm doing in Vrindavan. Prabhupada says Arjuna was not, sitting in meditation and meditating on Krishna on the battlefield. He was killing for Krishna. He was doing some service for Krishna. So the service to Krishna. Another example comes in Hyderabad when Tamil Krishna Papa told, bring Mr. Nair, we meet him. He came with his guru. And all the dealing happened. Prabhupada came and talked to him 2 hours, did, again signed agreement. After all this happened, then Tamal Krishna told, Prabhupada, I could not chant my rounds, all these dealings agitate me. Prabhupada nodded, sometimes I also could not, my chanting also get disturbed. But then Tamal Krishna told, but I see Prabhupada, I'm advancing spiritually. Prabhupada says, when you work for spiritual master, when you do such services, as guided, as asked by spiritual master, then we advance.
Yeah. So we see that Jnana means we are trying to go away from whatever is we feel disturbance, like that. So person when he understands that birth, old age, disease, death is disturbance, he wants to get out of it. When he finds that 3 modes of material nature are disturbing, he wants to get out of it. So similarly, sometimes he feels that this service to Krishna also is disturbing. He wants to get mukti from that also. So that's how these tendencies, they play their dance in our devotional service. So similarly, there is a yoga. Yoga is for perfection and having a distinct identity that I am superior. So that also creeps in. So here, this now, the discussion is going on and then it culminates in pure devotional service. So now, 23rd is done, na? 24th. Ahimsaya parahamsya charchaya smrutya mukunda charitagra sidhuna yamaira kamair niyamaishchapya nindaya nirihaya dvanda titikshaya cha.
Ahimsaya cha. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them.
Yeah. So he is telling ahimsaya, that is being non-violent, parahamsa charchaya, parahamsa charyaya, that following the footsteps of great acharyas, paramhamsas, smrutya mukunda acharita agya sidhuna, remembering and tasting the sweetness of the excellent pastimes of the Lord. Yamair akamair nityamai cha api, niyamai cha api, practicing yama niyama without material desires. Anindaya, that is not criticizing others, and their methods of different religions, that Prabhupada talks in the purport. Nirihaya, that means simple and plain living. Dvandva titikshaya, tolerating dualities. So in the purport, Prabhupada writes about the how the actual saintly person sadhu is. That is following the non-violence, titiksha, karuna, so Prabhupada writes about the Christian theological understanding. He says, a devotee is the friend not only of a human society but of all living entities. For he sees all living entities as sons of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he says that everybody is son of God. Not only one is son of God. He does not claim himself to be the only son of God and allow others to be killed, thinking they have no soul. So in Christianity, they say that there is only one God, one Son of God, and that is. So, Prabhupada, yesterday I was reading that this Christ, meaning of Christ is Krishta. Prabhupada is telling that even in Bengali, this Krishta means anointed. Anointed means, anointed, you understand? Pura saj dhaj ke aisa. So, or the Krishta also means love. So then Prabhupada says, Christ means love of God. So like that he says. So Krista means love of God. Yeah. So then he says Suruda Sarvadehinam. Sarvadehinam means animals, birds, everybody, like that. Then he says, trying to advance in spiritual life outside the disciplic succession is simply ludicrous. And then he talks about Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Acharyavan means only one who has taken shelter of Acharya. He can actually understand the Vedas. And about the Smrutya, he talks, this remembrance of the Lord can be continued if we hear about Him constantly. So constant hearing result in constant remembrance. Mukunda Charitagri Sidhuna. Sidhu means nectar. To hear about Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or similar authentic literature is to live in Krishna consciousness. Such concentration in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a person who are strictly following the rules and regulative principles. Then he talks about the yama. Yama means controlling the senses. If we simply practice avoiding material sense gratification, controlling the senses is automatically achieved. So he says that out of sight is out of mind. So just by avoiding material sense gratification, one becomes spiritually strong, and then keeping oneself away from sense gratification becomes more easy. And that's how we see that this is one principle which the Vedic understanding and modern understanding differ. Modern understanding, they say that unless we experience it, how can we know whether it's good or bad? And then only we can, after understanding that it is bad, then we can give it up with greater, it's like that is real detachment. That's how they think. Even Daksha also had that kind of theory when he was talking to Narad Muni. But then we see that the brahmachari life is keeping away from as much sense gratification as possible. And that actually nourishes our Krishna consciousness, like that. So, and the thing is, by the mentality, the male mentality is that when he is more he does austerity, he gains strength, like that. And the ladies, it is little opposite. More they do sense gratification, they become more powerful, like that. So that's how the ladies are not given brahmacharya type of training. They are kept in home in proper comfort, and in that comfort they are told to worship the Supreme Lord by giving them some rules and regulations, some vrata and things like that. So we see that to the degree we keep ourselves away from sense gratification, to the degree one is performing austerity, the brahmachari becomes more blossomed where there is austerity. And when there is austerity and one feels kind of bothered by that austerity, that is a womanly nature. So like that. Yes. Okay. So manly nature means specifically the brahmachari, if the austerity is there, he is very happy. He feels that nice. And then he talks about the anindaya. Prabhupada writes here, we should not criticize others' method of religion. There are different types of religious systems operating under different qualities of material nature. Those operating in the modes of ignorance and passion cannot be as perfect as the system in the mode of goodness. So, and then Prabhupada ends with that the paragraph by telling, simply by criticizing them, a devotee's mind will be agitated. Thus, a devotee should tolerate and learn to stop agitation by practicing anindaya, that we unnecessarily don't criticize others' methods of religion. another feature of devotee is nirihaya, simple living. Nirihaya means gentle, meek, or simple. A devotee should not live very gorgeously and imitate a materialistic person. And then Prabhupada writes, he should not eat or sleep more than is required. Simply eating for living and not living for eating, and sleeping only 6 to 7 hours a day are simple principles to be followed by devotees. As long as the body is there, it is subjected to the influence of climatic changes, disease, and natural disturbances, and threefold miseries of material existence. We cannot avoid them. Sometimes, so then he gives one example also, that one of his neophyte student asking question to Prabhupada, why they have fallen sick although pursuing Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada talk about this dvandva titikshaya, that they should learn from this verse that they have to become tolerant. Material world will give its due when we are in this material world, but then we have to tolerate. Okay, so next 25. So this shloka talks about how just by hearing about the Lord, one gets detached from the material world and then attached to the spiritual world. Harer muhustat parakarnapura गुणाभिधानेन विजृम्भमाणया भक्त्या ह्यसङ्गः सदसत्यनात्मनि स्यान्निर्गुणे ब्रह्मणि चाञ्जसारथिः.
The devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of transcendental qualities of Supreme Personality of Godhead. These pastimes are like ornamental decoration on ears of devotees. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in transcendence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So he says, Syan nirgune brahmani cha anjasartihi. So one becomes attached to the Supreme Lord and detached. Bhaktyahi asangaha. That one becomes asanga, that detached from the material world. So here Prabhupada writes, this verse is specially mentioned to substantiate the devotional process of hearing the subject matter. Prabhupada further writes, we can increase our propensity for devotional service by hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from realized souls. The more we hear from realized souls, the more we make advancement in our devotional life. The more we advance in devotional life, the more we become detached from the material world. The more we become detached from the material world, as advised by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, more we increase in attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee who actually wants to make progress in devotional service and go back to Godhead must lose interest in sense enjoyment and associating with persons who are after money and sense gratification. So, by right type of association and by leaving wrong association, that becomes a very fast channel to achieve Krishna. And then Prabhupada quotes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's this verse, which applies perfect to Brahmacharya ashram together. Nishkinchanasya bhagavad bhajanonmukhasya param param jigimishor bhavasagarasya sandarshanam vishayinam athayoshhitam cha ha hanta hanta vishabhakshanatopya sadhu. So, it says Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanonmukhasya, that we all are on the path of Nishkinchana. We want to become Nishkinchana by giving up externally and internally attachment to things of this material world. Bhagavad Bhajanonmukhasya. We want to achieve perfection in Bhagavad Bhajan. And then he talks that how for such a person to be attached to woman or person who is attached to woman, such kind of association is very deadly. How much deadly? It is like drinking poison willingly. To that much degree yeah. So the text, okay, any text 26. So this is mixed with, because previously if you find there is a stress on following some other processes like purificatory processes and things like that. So that was the tinge of that jnana. When it comes to hearing, that is pure devotional service, like that. So text 26. Yadaratir brahmani naishthiki puman Acharyavan jnana viragaram hasa dahatya viryam hrudayam jivakosham panchatmakam yonimivotthitognihi. Somebody?
Upon becoming fixed in his attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the grace of the spiritual master, and by awakening knowledge and detachment, the living entity situated within the heart of the body and covered by the five elements burns up his material surrounding exactly as fire arising from wood burns the wood itself.
Yeah. So very nice analogy is given. The verse gives this analogy of fire emanating from the wood and burning the wood itself. So the fire comes from the source, that is wood. After coming, fire burns the wood only. So similarly, here the individual soul, Prabhupada writes in the purport, the individual soul is liberated when it comes out of the material heart or cleanses the heart to make it spiritualized. The example given here is very appropriate. Yonin ivotthita agnihi. Agni or fire comes out of a wood, and by it the wood is completely destroyed. Similarly, when a living entity increases his attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is to be considered like fire. A blazing fire is visible by its exhibition of heat and light. Similarly, when the living entity with heart becomes enlightened with full spiritual knowledge and detachment from the material world, he burns up his material coverings of 5 elements. And here this says Dahati Viryam Hridayam Jiva Kosham Panchatmakam. So this Jiva Kosha, or the covering above Jiva, made up of 5 elements, that is burnt by Krishna consciousness developed in the heart of living entity. So that is compared to the fire coming from the wood and then burns the fire. So this Jiva Kosham Panchatmakam, Prabhupada gives 2 meanings to that in purport. Panchatmakam, that is earth, water, fire, air, ether, that is one Panchatmakam. Another Panchatmakam he says is the covering of 5 coverings of subtle body: ignorance, ego, attachment, hatred, and fear of death. So these are the 5 subtle coverings on subtle body. So that also is burned. And then Prabhupada talks about the meaning of Acharyavan, that how unless one becomes Acharyavan or takes shelter of the spiritual master, this detachment and burning of this Panchatmakam Jiva Kosham doesn't happen. Another example, analogy which Prabhupada gives in the later part of the purport, he says, just as a dry coconut lives detached from the coconut husk, even though within the husk. You have seen that? Coconut is there, you just allow it to dry by itself. Then coconut dries, above skin also dries, and then inside coconut becomes shrink, and then that becomes like a dry coconut. If you do like that, then you can, it creates the sound, that because it is. And you can see also when it is wet how difficult it is to remove. Some people try with their spoon, some people try with chaku, and then it's like very cumbersome. But then when it becomes dry automatically, without any much endeavor, it becomes detached. So Prabhupada compares that to this shloka. Ihayasya hare dase karmana manasa gira nikhilashvapi avasthasu jivan muktasa uchyate. So that Nariyal is like a Jivan Mukta. Although he has a covering, but inside that covering he is Mukta. He is not attached. Yeah. So now there is text 27, result of such detachment from the material covering is given. So when he arises his Krishna consciousness which destroys that covering, what happens next? So that is given in text 27. Dagdhashayo mukta samasta sadguno naivatmano bahirantar vichaste paratmanorya vyavadhanam purastat swapne yatha purushas tadvinashe. Yes? Loud.
When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, it transcends distinction between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the super soul, which was existing before self-realization, is annihilated. When a dream is over, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer.
Yeah. So here says Dagdhashayo Mukta Samasta Tad Guno. That Samasta Guna acting on such living entity, Dagdhashayam, that they are burnt. So then, three things happen to such person who is Dagdhashayo Mukta Samastad Guno. He says external sense objects, they become, they don't exist for him. So he doesn't see them. Bahir, he says, Naivatmano Bahirantar Vichaste. That whatever outside sense objects are there, they don't give him trouble as much as they were giving trouble when he was bound, like that. I remember this Chandramouli Maharaj was telling this, that when we don't perform our morning sadhana properly, then the same sense objects which were we thought we have conquered at one point of time start becoming more difficult when we become weak in our sadhana, like that. So then he was telling that when we don't chant nicely, Maya start becoming more charming, like that. So more we chant nicely, the charm of Maya is reduced just by our chanting. So that's how it goes. And then he says, and then he no longer sees internal disturbances. Internal disturbances means lamentation, etc. So that he also becomes free from that. And then obstacles in seeing Paramatma, that also is destroyed when somebody is liberated, like that. So this verse almost looks like a he starts seeing oneself as Paramatma or something like that. It appears like that. But whenever such shlokas are there, we understand that in right perspective, keeping the whole other shlokas in as a guidance. If you take just one shloka, then it may look like this is like Mayavad only. But then, when we see other supporting shlokas, then we understand that it is talking about the oneness in purpose, oneness in quality. That is what is stressed. And then one thing which is talked here about a liberated person. When one is liberated from the material qualities, somebody can read that?
When one is liberated from the material qualities, he does not do anything for his personal sense gratification. At that time, all activities performed by him are absolute. In the conditioned state, there are two kinds of activities. One acts on behalf of the body, and at the same time he acts to become liberated. The devotee, when he is completely free from all material desires or all material qualities, transcends the quality of actions for the body and soul. Then the body...
Yeah. So, that is the distinction between liberated soul and conditioned soul. Conditioned soul also practices devotional service, and then he has some material engagements also. Liberated soul has only spiritual engagements. Even if sometimes he may be seen as materially engaged, that is doesn't become any obstacle or in his actual spiritual absorption, like that. So that shows that I think our Prabhupada's personal servant, he writes that when the for us how the when the prasadam feast is kept on the in front, that is far more absorbing than Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like immediately the absorption starts, isn't it? There is no question of laziness, sleep. So all that qualities of what is that? Anisthita bhajana kriya, they disappear. So laya, vikshepa, vagara, that all it's like complete absorption is there. And pure devotees also, when they see prasadam, they are completely absorbed. So this Prabhupada's personal servant was telling that Prabhupada used to take prasad exactly on time, whatever is, whether it's GBC meeting is going on or some very important thing is going on. He was telling that that's how it was, that even if sannyasis are sitting 7, 8 and then Prabhupada is talking to them, when the time was there, he will just bring a plate of prasad and keep in front of Prabhupada. And then as Prabhupada will see prasadam plate, he will go in different world only. And by seeing Prabhupada's mood, one devotee will start slowly moving out, thinking that we don't want to disturb now Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada, very one by one, he will take 40 minutes, slowly take prasad, like that. So now Prabhupada also is absorbed in taking prasad, and we also feel absorbed in taking prasad. What is the difference? Yeah. So that is the difference. That we are absorbed because there is sweet rice. That increases our absorption more. If there is a puff, that absorbs more. If there is rasgulla, that brings extra absorption. So that's how but then spiritually advanced, liberated person is absorbed even if you give him khichdi. He will very be absorbed in, because he sees that as Krishna's remnants, like that. So here he says that for liberated person there are no material kind of, he doesn't work materially. So when he is taking prasad, he is not taking prasad like us. He is tasting Krishna's mercy. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that they can be served anything.
आवाज नहीं आ रहा है.
They have their preferences of what they like. Kachoris, this is Prabhupada like kachoris.
Yeah.
And different acharyas also, they had their favorite preparations. How to understand that, Prabhuji?
Yeah, because everybody is individual. Prabhupada liked kachoris doesn't mean that he will not like other things. He liked kachoris more. But then whatever comes as Krishna's prasad, he will equally worship, respect and take it. So individuality is maintained in devotional service. That is not destroyed. So it's like that. So both things are possible. That's how liberated person doesn't mean that he becomes like a stone. No emotions, no likings, no dislikings. He's like the stone only. That's what generally people feel. That somebody is liberated means he is like a stone only. No emotions. उसके सामने कोई मर भी गया तो उसको कुछ नहीं लगता है. उसको भूख लग गया तो कुछ नहीं लगता है. उसको थप्पड़ लगाया तो कुछ नहीं लगता है. तो he is not a stone with no emotions. Rather he has a pure emotions. Only thing is they are not for sense gratification, they are for Krishna's pleasure. So Prabhupada light kachoris doesn't mean that he will leave aside all other work and go for purchasing kachoris to eat. No. So his liking doesn't come in any way in his, it doesn't cross or compete or obstruct his service to Krishna, like that. Okay. So Prabhupada writes, in such a liberated condition, there is no distinction between actions for sense gratification and action for liberation. So basically for him, all his activities are for liberation only. There is no question of any action for sense gratification. Text 28. So the text 28 and 29, these are the effects of the presence and absence of the subtle body. When the subtle body is present, what is the effect? And when the subtle body is absent, what is the effect? Text 28. Atmanimindriyartham cha param yadubhayorapi satyashaya upadhau vai puman pashyati nanyada.
When the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires. And for that reason, he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord.
Yeah, so this is when the presence of subtle body is there, how he sees, and when that he is elevated to the absence of that subtle body, that covering is finished. Thinking oneself, this body, thinking mind, intelligence, false ego, chitta, when that is removed, then how he purely functions. So both things are given in this shloka. So the first thing is, in the presence of subtle body, so one is subjected to various designations and he sees oneself as an object, he sees oneself as an enjoyer due to desires. So that is the first thing. He says, Atman nam indriyam artham. So he sees oneself as enjoyer. Second, he sees things of this world as object of sense enjoyment. He sees this whole world as world, the way when once reporter asked Prabhupada that why Lord created this material world. Prabhupada said for enjoyment. So reporter was very happy. Then Prabhupada said, not your enjoyment. Prabhupada said it is for Krishna's enjoyment. So material consciousness means we see this world as, we see any object, we connect it to ourselves, like that. That's how we see. And the third things which happens, the way he sees, that he sees everything as the results of happiness and distress. Ubhayorapi, that's how he sees. And then when somebody gives up this coverings, then he says he no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. So he sees Paramatma and then he is trying to fulfill the desire of Paramatma rather than his own desires. Like that. Yeah. Of course, Prabhupada elaborately discusses this. Anasaktasya vishayan yatharham upayunjatah nirbandha krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchyate. So he talks about yukta vairagya, how liberated person follows that. Yeah. And then in 29th shloka also, the difference is given how the person he behaves when he is not liberated and how he behaves when he is liberated. Text 29. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha parasyapi bhidam pashyati nanyada.
Just as one sees the reflection of the body appearing differently manifested of water on oil or in a mirror.
Yeah. So, when the subtle body is present, then one sees differences in the bodies of oneself and others. And the example and the analogy is given, just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently in water, oil or a mirror.
Hare Krishna.
Don't switch off. Keep it on only. It takes long time otherwise. So basically he sees different bodies differently. But then somebody who is liberated, he does not see such difference on the bodily level, but he sees equality. That's how the liberated person is. Prabhupada writes, in conclusion, due to different causes, the living entity is visible in different forms as an animal, human being, demigod, tree, etc. Actually, every living entity is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. So that's how he sees. Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Text. Yeah. So when the subtle body is there, these things happen. One, that we see different bodies as different without considering the soul and connection to Krishna. Because we are also on bodily platform. We think ourselves as body. We think ourselves as mind. So we see, okay, here is different body and here is a different body. Because we are not on the level of soul, so we also see them as body only. And that's how we differentiate. So one body I like, other body I don't like, kill it, eat it. So that difference is there. But when we are on soul platform, then we don't see that difference. We respect cow, we respect dog, cat equally. So that is one difference. Another difference is where that when we have a subtle body having so many desires, we think ourselves enjoy and everything around as object of our enjoyment. That's what happens. That is a sign that you have a still attachment to body, mind, like that. So when that is not there, then he does not see the world the way attached person sees. Understand? So now this 30 and 34. Okay, so now it is 150. We have two options. Two options are this, that either we take long break and have two sessions, or we take just small break and just continue. Okay, how many of you feel that now it is 150? For example, 2 o'clock we take a break, and then we meet again by 3 o'clock or something, and then till 5 o'clock we go, or we take a in between 10 minutes break and just go till 4 o'clock, and then 4 o'clock we. So first is long break 2 to 3. Count, Haribol, count. Haribol, keep your hand up so that we. Okay, short break at 2 o'clock and then we continue. No, then what we'll do is, huh? No, my desire has to kind of. No, but many devotees are wanting. Huh? So, okay, many devotees are feeling that we should have longer break, then maybe we can take 45 minutes break in between. So that. So we'll go till 2:15 and then we meet again by 3 o'clock. Okay, so now we are on 30th. So this 30, 31, 32, 33 and 34. 5 shlokas are there which tells about attachment to sense gratification, how that causes bondage in samsara. So 30th. Indriyaiर्विषयाकृष्टम् आक्षिप्तं ध्यायतां मनः चेतनां हरते बुद्धेः स्तम्भस्तोयमिव हृदात्.
When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank.
Yeah. So the analogy is given that the way pond is there, and when the grass grows, grass is useless material desires. Like when they grow, what happens is all the water is sucked by that grass. So similarly, material desires, they dry up Krishna consciousness water which is there in the heart of living entity. So we allow material desires to grow, that is equivalent to reducing our Krishna consciousness, like that. So more the desires, less Krishna consciousness. So that's how he says, Indriyair Vishaya Krishtair. So when the Indriyas, they are attracted to Vishaya, and then the material desires, they grow, and then we see that Krishna consciousness sinks in. Any examples? Any example? How? So giving example of Bharat Maharaj, deer became the weed, and then desire to protect, love that deer started growing, and that practically dried him up with intensity towards Supreme Lord. Then he became very casual. Okay. Any other example? Krishna conscious person, he allows material desires to grow, and then he becomes less Krishna conscious or no Krishna conscious, like that. Huh? This is how the step by step it happens. Okay. Dvivida, how he allowed his material desires to grow? Yeah. When he went to the wrong association, he allowed himself to go in that wrong association, and then he became inimical, not just less in Krishna conscious. He became inimical to Krishna only, like that. Any other example? Yamunacharya, very nice example. That previously he was studying scriptures, relishing them, but then once the sense gratification and so many plans of material sense gratification came, then his sense gratification level started reducing. And then that Krishna consciousness was synced in as his material outreach went high, like that. Priyavrat Maharaj, because he was blessed by Brahma, he was saved. Although he... So we see that if we allow ourselves to have material desires, then that material desire itself sucks away all our Krishna consciousness. It's like that. So we see that person practicing Krishna consciousness don't feel happy because of material desires only. It's a simple thing. If he is a pure Krishna consciousness is there, there is no question of moroseness, unhappiness, lamentation, or competition, things like that. All these things are just outcome of that material desires only. So one devotee was commenting that how we see that when outside person is there who is having so many material desires, when he comes to temple, he feels that how these devotees are dancing. It's like as if they have spring in their leg. He can't, even if he tries, it's not possible for him. Big athlete fails when they dance with devotees. One athlete was there, he used to run 16, 17 kilometers like that. One day he came to temple and he was dancing with devotees. 10 मिनट में थक गया वो बैठ गया वो ये अलग ही है कुछ तो. So for outsider it becomes very difficult because so much of heavy material desires are there, they don't allow him to dance. It's like that. It's very heavy. But slowly he gives up that whole thing and then he dances, chants very freely. And then what happens? And then slowly he becomes senior. And then he becomes very heavy. And then he stopped dancing, stop taking darshans, stops giving respect to others, and starts accepting respect from others. And basically he go back to the square. He becomes so heavy, then everybody is dancing, he feels that now I have been liberated above all these things. So now I don't have to dance because I have become senior. So he becomes transcendental to Krishna also. It's like previously we transcend Maya and come in Krishna consciousness, and then sometimes we want to go beyond that also. So that shows that again different varieties of material desires have come, that we are not able to freely access the same free lifestyle of chanting, hearing, dancing, and then so many considerations are there. So that's what happens when material desires grow. So we should be able to see ourselves always inventory में कितना material desires है, whether they are increasing or whether they are decreasing or nothing is happening. We should one has to count. As you know that those who are serving in bookstall, every month they do inventory. You have seen that? Which date? First of every month they do inventory. So then they come to know 2-4 पुस्तक गायब है, 2-4 पुस्तक एक्स्ट्रा है, या जो भी है. So similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that we also should do inventory every Ekadashi. That's how he says. How was previous 15 days? How was previous month? How was previous patch? So that we are careful, not having this issue of material desires growing and one day we find that there is no water only, and then it's like dried up, like nothing. Dried up means nice decorated Krishna's Ras Bihari's darshan. You don't feel only anything. You just sit there as if you are watching some dolls, and then nice vibrant kirtan is going on, doesn't touch you. It's like you feel that why devotees should dance, those who are new bhaktas, and it's good for them. They should dance. nice Bhagavatam is there, that doesn't touch. So we see that what used to touch the heart previously start becoming little problematic. So that's how, that is the effect of material desires. So Krishna consciousness becomes very dry. So the dryness in Krishna consciousness is because of sense gratification and the material desires, like that. So then we go to the text 31. Bhrachatsu nusmrutischittam jnana bhramshah smrutikshaye tadrodham kavayah prahur atmapahmatmanah.
When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost.
Yeah. So when his natural position of remembering his connection to Krishna is lost, then such soul is considered lost. Yeah. Text 32. नातः परतरो लोके पुंसः स्वार्थ व्यतिक्रमः यदध्यन्यस्य प्रेयस्त्वम् आत्मनः स्वव्यतिक्रमात्.
There is no stronger obstructions to one's self-interest than thinking other subject matter to be more pleasing than one's self-realization.
Yeah. So our what is his name? What is the name of that Maharaj who got blood cancer and then he no, not blood cancer, he was this our first black bodied devotee, na? Bhakti Tirth Maharaj. So Bhakti Tirth Maharaj has written many books about the spiritual leadership and many like that. So in one place he writes that the biggest obstacle in one's devotional service, you know what? Yeah, he says oneself only. So the biggest obstacle in our devotional service is we ourselves, because other obstacles are not such big obstacles. They may create little disturbance, but then what obstacle we can create to ourselves is far superior and more grave and more effective than other obstacles. Other obstacles may create little scratch. What we can create is just shift the whole thing upside down. So that's how he says here that there is no stronger obstruction to one's self-interest than other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self-realization. So when we ourselves don't prioritize our self-realization, then whatever, whether the obstructions are there or not, doesn't make any difference, because this obstruction of our not prioritizing self-realization becomes the biggest obstacle amongst all other obstacles. Yeah. Somebody read the purport.
Human life is specially meant for self-realization. Self refer to the super self and the individual self, the supreme personality of Godhead and the living entity. When, however, one becomes more interested in the body and bodily sense gratification, he creates for himself obstruction on the path of self-realization. By the influence of Maya, one becomes more interested in sense gratification, which is prohibited in this world for those interested in self-realization. Instead of becoming interested in sense gratification, one should divert his activities to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Soul. Anything performed contrary to this principle is certainly against one's self-interest.
Yeah. So we see that Prabhupada writes that by the influence of Maya, one becomes more interested in sense gratification, which is prohibited in this world for those interested in self-realization. So, the interest in sense gratification is created by Maya in different forms. For outside person, Maya creates interest by breaking four regulative principles. They are attracted to meat eating, they are attracted to wine, cigarettes, they are attracted to, that's how Maya attracts them to obstruct their progress further. But when somebody gives up that whole and then he comes to Krishna consciousness, then Maya, now Maya cannot give the same allurements which he has already given up. Then Maya start giving allurements which are more subtler. And then the first allurement of Maya is that go slow, take it easy, don't be hurry. Slow and steady wins the race. It's by the mercy of divine grace. So go slow, don't be fast.